the intense population density there, but it also may look less or more, and it's unclear where the Hamas fighters would go. But the big issue, I think, that gets much less attention because everything's focused on Gaza right now, is the northern border. And we hear about this from time to time, but this is what, even from come and go, as we saw, I think from yesterday or the day before, it's kind of hard to remember exactly when it was, exchange of fire, both Israel firing deep into Lebanon, and as well the Hezbollah attacks into Israel. This has been ongoing, and this is also something that's intolerable for the residents in the north of Israel, but in particular the IDF, because it needs to reduce this threat from Hezbollah, which is much more significant than the threat that Hamas even posed when it comes to its ability to really strike serious damage on Israel.
Digging a little bit deeper into that, if a temporary ceasefire was reached there between Israel and Hamas, how would that likely impact Hezbollah and their fight with Israel? Would there be any sort of connection there?
Well, I think there's certainly a connection. It's just unclear what exactly that is. On the one hand, a temporary ceasefire, to say here, there's a way to basically reduce tensions. On the other hand, it may provide an opportunity for Israel, and Hezbollah might think this provides an opportunity for Israel to turn its forces against it in southern Lebanon. And therefore, that's why, if there is this deal to reduce, basically have Hezbollah withdraw from this territory near the border and create some type of security zone or buffer there, that would be the solution that would much more seriously prevent this escalation, at least in the near term. But I think from Israel's perspective, it doesn't see this as going away in any near time, and that at a certain point, both not just domestically, you see in the primaries, but really internationally, there will come a point where it's caused such significant tensions where it's causing challenge with other alliance relationships the United States has, not just in the Arab world, which is very important for cooperation, but also in other alliances too, because they're being pushed as well. So I think part of it is just this real reminder of there will be a point, and I think the patience with Netanyahu, Biden's patience with Netanyahu is worn thin and is continuing to wear thin on a personal level, but also just reminding that this is significant pressure, and the United States can't continue to tolerate this much longer.
And you have President Biden saying that he believes, he's hopeful that a ceasefire hostage release deal, at least temporarily, can be reached by next Monday. Today, you have Egypt's president kind of echoing that and saying they're hopeful that it'll happen in the coming days. Does it appear that we are closer to an actual temporary truce hostage release deal?
Well, I think one would hope, but I don't think there's any way to know. There's certainly a lot of expectations built around this, and the fact that the president mentioned it a couple of days ago, the Egyptians are now mentioning it, and maybe this is a different way to kind of put a lot of pressure on.
That he believes, he's hopeful that a ceasefire hostage release deal, at least temporarily, can be reached by next Monday. Today, you have Egypt's president kind of echoing that and saying they're hopeful that it'll happen in the coming days. Does it appear that we are closer to an actual temporary truce hostage release deal?
Well, I think one would hope, but I don't think there's any way to know. There's certainly a lot of expectations built around this, and the fact that the president mentioned it a couple of days ago, the Egyptians are now mentioning it, and maybe this is a different way to kind of put a lot of pressure on both sides or multiple sides of this to have something, to get something through. That could be it. But again, we're really raising a lot of the expectations here, and I think most parties' hopes is that something good will come out of it.
Would a temporary ceasefire mean no Rafah offensive? Is it just a sending?
Will stop on either one of the two sides.
All right. Lawrence Rubin, as always, thank you so much for joining us here and breaking down the latest developments. Anything you want to add about any of this before I let you go?
Well, I mean, it's the same. We continue to monitor these situations, and when any one of them kind of is quiet on our news cycle, another one blows up. So it's not to kind of keep our eye off the ball if it's having to do with maritime security, and the threats the Houthis might pose. If they feel left out, they may decide to launch, a few salvos, and the same thing. I think less so more sophisticated actors when it comes to Hezbollah and Hamas, but one's quiet and the other one, it's never really quiet.
All right, Lawrence, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much for having me.